stitch, cutie. Okay, if you're watching this video now, it means you're finished stitching the applique or doing the machine embroidery for all 3 blocks of your first block. So here's our little gnome, and this is block 2 of the quilt. I'm gonna set that aside. Then we have this cute tree, the naked tree, and it is block 8 from your first box. And then we have block 1 of the quilt, and again, this is in your first box. So what I'm gonna show you in this part of the tutorial is how to trim this block down to the size it calls for in the pattern. So what I'm gonna do is take out my placement guide again. Remember at the beginning of all of the videos for this first box, I pointed out that this outer line is ultimately your perfect trim line. And then this inner line is just a visual guide to tell you that's where your 1/4 inch seam allowance is gonna be. So what I'm gonna do is show you how I trim my blocks, and you don't have to do it this way, but it's how I do it because my thought is once I've done all this work, I definitely don't wanna mess up trimming, right? So I'm gonna turn this sideways just for purposes of fitting in the camera better, right? And the tool that I use to mark my lines on my gnome, remember that in the tutorial for machine applique? It's this friction pin by Pilot. I love it. It disappears, but I'm gonna use it to tell me where to trim. So what I'm gonna do is, using the applique placement guide, I'm gonna line my tree up perfectly, right? So let's just make sure I've got it in place all the way. All right, so what I'm gonna do is take my handy ruler and my little pin. Now, you can do this a variety of different ways. I'm showing you what I think is the easy way. And I'm gonna line up perfectly straight right there. So I'm using the line up here too to make sure that my ruler's straight. And then I'm visually using my line down here to make sure I'm straight. And I'm gonna draw. I'm pressing down hard on my ruler so my fabric stays in place. And I'm gonna draw a line there. And I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna do that same thing. Let me move my pretty flower out of the way. And again, I'm just being really careful not to move my fabric out of place. And just make sure I stay straight. There we go. So I'm right on that line. And I'm just gonna draw my line. Now, on this outer line, I'm gonna line up my ruler here. And sorry, I think my head's gonna pop into view because I just have to get where I can see. And you use the lines, let me show you. Okay, so I'm lined up on the line visually, right? See, well, you can't see, it's right there. And you know that you're gonna have it in a perfect position when this line of your ruler right here is straight with that drawn line that we already did down here. And the same thing, you're gonna have your lines go straight through that line perfectly here. That's gonna tell you that you are going to have a perfect block. So I just press down on my ruler pretty hard so I can make sure I'm marking. Yep. Now I'm gonna gently lift this and we're gonna do it one more time. I kind of moved it. Boop. Put that back in place. We're gonna do it on this outer line down here. So the same thing. Gonna make sure I'm on my line. Doot. There we go. And again, you're gonna make sure that your lines line up here and here. And then of course, you'll be able to see your black line on your pattern right here. So that's all you do to trim. See, isn't that easy? So easy. And just make sure you hold that down. So now, look at that. We know where we're gonna trim. Now I know some of you might think this is like an elementary way to do it, but to me, it's like I've done all this work to make it perfect. Why not do one last step to make it perfect, right? So I'm gonna move that out of the way and we're just gonna trim. So let me just make sure I'm on my thing. And we're gonna trim. I guess in theory you could trim right over your pattern, but then you lose your pattern piece. That's never good. There we go. Boop. And if a little pink shows, which I don't have any pink showing, but if it did, it wouldn't be a big deal because it disappears when you iron it. And then you're just gonna use your lines again. Make sure you're perfectly lined up. Boop. Let me just put my head down here. Yeah, almost. Doot, doot, doot. See, and this way you're protecting your work. In my head, that's what I'm doing. And so hopefully you like this little tip. All right, we're gonna throw this piece away. See, so we give you way more than enough fabric. We don't wanna give you so much that we're wasteful, but we also wanna give you enough where you feel confident that you're not gonna, you know, run out of fabric or not have what you need. That's the worst, isn't it? And then one more time. And again, just follow the principles of cutting. Always make sure the lines line up there, and that's gonna make sure that you have perfect right angles. Take a look. Look at that perfect tree. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you're gonna do this tree the exact same way. I'm not gonna bother showing you that because if you can trim this tree, you can trim this tree, right? So you're just gonna follow those same steps and you're gonna use the block 8 outline, right? So you're gonna have your blocks trimmed. Now I'm gonna show you how to trim the gnome. You follow the exact same principles, but he's so cute, I wanna see him trimmed right now. Okay, so again, I'm turning it sideways just so it fits in my camera for you. And you wanna get your little gnome lined up. I think I have him perfect. Let's take a look. Looking good. Sorry, y'all, I'm just putting my head right in here. You're gonna see I have sunglasses on my head. Just funny because it is storming today. We're thinking about leaving early because there's well, staff has already left today because there's tornado watches, so we sent everyone home, but Mom and I stayed because we're crazy like that. Okay, so now that you know you're in the right spot, you're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take our ruler and we're gonna line it up, and then, sorry, I'm putting my head in it again. Just gonna make sure, yep, right on that line. So again, press kind of hard on your ruler just to make sure your fabric doesn't shift. And then just mark down your line. I'm gonna come back up and do this line too. And actually, I'm gonna put my ruler inside just to make sure I can use those black lines. There we go, let's take a look. Oh no, I'm not to the right line. So again, we're using that outer line. The inner line marked for you is your binding, or not your binding, your seam allowance. Perfect. So now, sorry, I'm kind of at a weird angle. There goes my hand right in front of the camera. There we go. So now we're gonna do a bottom line. Just get that right on there. And shift just a little. There we go, make sure that's straight. And then I just kind of peek. Yep. So now draw your line here. And then we're gonna do one more. And again, sorry y'all, here comes my head. Right in the camera. Sorry y'all. It's necessary because I gotta make sure I'm in the right spot. There we go. And then I just kind of lift to make sure I don't, you know, see, I see my line here and not here, so that shows me that I'm just a hair crooked. There we go, perfect. So now, draw your line. Awesome. So this is how I trim. Now I know Mom has fancier ways of doing it. But I like to make sure that I'm 100% accurate. See? Perfectly square. So I'm gonna take my paper out. And then we're just gonna use the pink lines like we did on the other, and we're going to trim. There we go. And so right here, you'll have 1/2 inch approximately from like where your feet start. And then we'll do this side. And your gnomes are always gonna be that same distance from the bottom every time. Boop. And then turn. And just make sure it stays nice and straight. There we go. Alrighty. And one more cut, and then I'm gonna show you my happy little block. I just love this little guy. You know what would be really fun? Use your pattern and make a pillow so that every month in your house throughout the year, you can have your quilt hanging and you can change the pillow every month. How cute would that be? Because remember, we give you the pieces reversed, so you can grab some scraps and make a second one if you want. Okay, so here is our block all finished and this tree all trimmed. So now you just have to make sure you trim this block that I didn't do in the video, but again, you know how from trimming this one. So that is all of the tutorials for the first box that you got. I hope that you are just so thrilled to be a member of the Gnome Block of the Month, and I hope that you are just on the edge of your seat waiting for box 2, because I know I'm ready to make block 2, or I'm sorry, make all the blocks from box 2 already. Those are tongue twisters. I'm just ready to make more gnomes. Happy stitching, everybody.